So I am a senior English major here at the zoo, and I'm also one of Newman's peer ministers, so that's kind of what I do here. I actually gave a talk at U3 my freshman year, so it's taken them 3 years to ask me back. So take that as you will. So for the last few weeks, we've listened to talks and discussed our personal faith journeys, and I think this conversation that we've had has led us to a really natural point. We've talked about, why we go on these journeys at all, the different distractions that can deter us. And last week, we discussed discernment and the different tools that we have that we can use to kind of decipher what our journeys ought to look like. So really, the only thing that we have left to do is actually commit to starting. And I think this is a really natural time for us to do that. This coming Wednesday, next Wednesday, is Ash Wednesday, the start of Lent. It's a time when we bring our spiritual journeys to the forefront. We pick, we give up chocolate, or we decide to pray the rosary once a week. We pick tangible ways to keep our spiritual lives at the front of our minds. But what I think is particularly special about this time of year is that Jesus' spiritual journey, his journey to the cross, is much more emphasized. And I think one of the most important things that we can do during Lent is to connect our journeys to Christ's journey to the cross. And the classic biblical story that we read during this time of year, especially at the beginning of Lent, is Jesus' time in the desert where Satan tempts him. And it's kind of a long passage, so I'm not going to read it, but it's kind of the beginning of the events that set the crucifixion into motion. But in the story, so Jesus goes out into the desert and Satan tempts him with food, with sustenance, and then later with kingdoms and power. And I looked it up. I'm a word person. I really like words. So I looked it up, and the word Satan comes from the Hebrew word, and you'll have to forgive me. Believe it or not, my Hebrew is a little rusty. But it comes from the Hebrew word ha-satan, which means stumbling block or obstacle. Satan, at his core, is a stumbling block. So in this passage, Satan offers Jesus, or basically what Jesus' stumbling block is essentially comfort. He offers Jesus food with sustenance, with physical comfort, and later with kingdoms and power, stability, and essentially with not going on his journey at all. So of all the distractions that Tommy talked about a couple weeks ago, I think comfort is one of the most dangerous because it makes us settle for so much less than what we were made for, or it hinders us from ever going or trying to go on this journey at all. And really what that comfort is just unnecessary focus on ourselves as we are right now. In reality, Jesus did not go on his journey. He did not choose his journey over comfort for himself. It had nothing to do with him. And likewise, he didn't choose to go on his journey for himself. He's God. He didn't need any more character development. He chose his journey. Okay. He chose his journey to make that special connection with each of us. And likewise, we're called to use our spiritual journeys to make that connection with him as well. So Lent is uncomfortable. I'm sure we can come up with many reasons why we wouldn't want to participate. But if the one reason we have is to make that special relationship with Christ, then that far outweighs our discomfort. Because in the end, it doesn't matter the person you are, or the things that you've done, or the people that you associate with. What matters is the relationship that you've formed with Christ and how well you blindly let him lead you. So what does this Lenten journey entail? The theologian Henry Nouwen likened Lent to the struggle between winter and spring, light and dark, good and evil, the pretty typical comparisons. Lent is the dying of certain aspects of ourselves to make way for the new. It's our opportunity to make an honest assessment of our lives as Catholic Christians, and God should be at the center of that. Because he is the only one who knows what our hearts look like and knows how we need to grow. So as we begin Lent, I encourage you to think of your Lenten resolutions as the tangible things or the concrete actions that are going to represent your faith lives until Easter. Think about your stumbling blocks and give it more than just a passing thought. And I'm not discouraging anyone from giving up sweets or chocolate or some kind of food. Every year of high school, without fail, my friend Caitlin and I would give up peanut butter because we really love peanut butter and solidarity. So I don't think food is a superficial thing to focus on or to give up. As long as each time you deny yourself dessert, or in my case peanut butter, that you know that you're taking part in Jesus' denial of the physical comfort in the desert. That you are taking a special role in Jesus' journey. And not just, retrying the New Year's resolutions that you've already failed at. So I just pray that you think and pray about your stumbling blocks and use those to connect to Christ. And that's going to look different for everybody, right? And how David connects to Christ is going to be different. How Katie Langdon connects to Christ, or how Liv, or Jessica, how you connect to Christ. Some people will do the whole self-denial thing, and other people will sacrifice their time or talents or money. And I think those differences are really beautiful. As for me, I'm a lot of things. I'm a peanut butter lover. I'm an avid Scrabble player, amateur Hebrew speaker. But the stumbling block that I keep coming back to this semester, or really this year, is that amid my other lovely, whimsical identifiers, I'm also a very anxious person, which is hard for me to admit because I like to fancy myself Wonder Woman. But it's true. And it's not like I'm always anxious about negative things. The night before classes start, I usually can't sleep because I'm so anxious with the anticipation of everything that I'm going to learn that is just too much for me. It's rough. But that anxiety, it's hard for me to always remember that can be positive when I'm panicking about things that are out of my control or that are over and done with. And that becomes a stumbling block because I focus on that panic and all of those things instead of trusting in the beautiful plan of Christ and trusting in Him. So this semester I'm writing, for my honors English thesis, I'm writing about representations of feminine spirituality. So I've been reading the autobiography of St. Teresa of Avila. And something that she liked to do was focus on different moments of Christ's journey, kind of just reflect on them. So one night when I was feeling particularly anxious, I started thinking about different moments when I thought that Jesus probably would have felt anxious. And a lot of those moments actually take place during Lent. I thought about, at the Last Supper, I thought about Jesus having to look at Judas. I'm pretty sure that was probably really awkward. I thought about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane when he had just this really ambiguous future, but he knew that what he was called to do at that moment was something that I think is infinitely difficult, which was to wait. And I just imagined him having to say, or just wanting to say, like, Lord, please take this cup away from me. And thinking and reflecting on these moments didn't make my anxiety go away. And it definitely didn't make it any easier. But what happened was that I did feel connected to Christ in my own way. And my anxiety became either a crossword bearing or a stumbling block worth tackling. So I think that's what I'm going to try to integrate that into my Lent. That's how I'm going to try to connect with Christ this season. And I'll probably start right now, right after I calm down from having to talk in front of people. I expected people to laugh. But what better time to start than when you have Jesus right here in front of you? It's so convenient, and it's going to be uncomfortable. Just the thought of conquering my anxiety gives me anxiety. But if the one reason that we have to go on this journey is to form a better relationship with Christ, then that far outweighs our discomfort. So, let's begin here Let's offer our flaws, our stumbling blocks, our discomfort. Let's begin our journey aligned with his.